What's up guys, Lucky Locks here, welcome back to another prediction video. This is going to be for LFA 125. We have Jaqueline Amorim versus Loveth Young for the vacant strawweight championship. Also have some other good fights on the card that we'll talk about as well. Should be a good one, coming to you live from Niagara Falls in New York. And you can definitely tell this is a card based in the Northeast. Lots of good, Northeastern regional MMA products on here. So this should be a fun card. And without further ado, let's get right into the first fight. Alright, first off, we're starting right off with the heavies. We got Jimmy Lawson coming up against Taylor Escamilla. And Lawson is a promising prospect from American Kickboxing Academy. He did lose his pro debut to Bellator heavyweight Saeed Soma on Titan, but he's picked up 3 round 1 KOs since then, the most recent coming on LFA 114 over Anthony Garrett. And Lawson is a great wrestler. He wrestled at Penn State, also has really heavy hands in the cage. If he lands just right, you probably are going to be taking a nap. So Escamilla, on the other hand, is a 1-0 prospect. He was 2-0 as an amateur, scored a round 1 KO in his pro debut on Alaska FC back in 2019. But, that was in 2019. We haven't seen him since. It was on Alaska FC, which is kind of a notoriously weak promotion on the regional circuit. And it was against an opponent with a losing record. So I just feel like Jimmy Lawson is a bit of a step above in this matchup. I don't have a super in-depth or a super long breakdown here. I just think Jimmy Lawson's a better fighter. I think he gets it done in this one. So I'm going with Jimmy Lawson to kick off the main card with a bang here and get a win, probably inside the distance, probably by knockout. Alright, we got a really good matchup next in the featherweight division between Michael Stack and Caio Gregorio. And Michael Stack is representing Trials MMA in Colorado, and he had never lost a fight pro or amateur until 2020 when he met Kai Kamaka in his second LFA appearance. He lost a decision there, but followed it up with 2 more wins. He's now sporting a tidy 6-1 record, 4 finishes and 6 wins, and he's a big featherweight at 5'10". It says 6 foot on Tapology. That's not correct. He is actually 5'10". But he is a physically imposing guy as he comes forward with strikes. He can land some good solid shots. He is susceptible to good counter strikers, kind of looking to corral you against the fence. He is very physically strong, really strong in the clinch, good knees to the body, able to push guys up against the fence easily, and he's also a good wrestler. He's got good defensive wrestling on the flip side. In his last fight against Jackson Fieldho, he received a lot more resistance in the grappling than we usually see. That fight was a lot closer than I thought it would be. But he has a great build. He's a very athletic guy. He has that suffocating pressure against the cage. He's always in on something, pushes a really high pace. Caio Gregorio, on the other hand, seems to be built like a god. If you see this guy's physique, my goodness. 86% finish rate, 4 submissions, fought for the Jungle Fight 145-pound belt in 2017, was defeated by Felipe Colares there, no shame there, UFC guy. And Gregorio has 2 fights on Brave CF where he is 1-1. Haven't seen him in the cage since 2019. Striking wise, he can be a little bit reckless with the striking. Honestly, Stack doesn't really strike me as the kind of calculated counter striker that's really going to punish him for that. However, Gregorio does have really big power on the feet. That flying knee KO he had was very vicious. He's a really good grappler. He's a jiu-jitsu black belt, really strong when he locks his hands. He's got good top game. He's a submission threat on the ground, heavy strikes from top position, and man, he looks absolutely shredded. He's got that insane Brazilian physique. In his second most recent fight, he looks huge at 155. I think he's going to look crazy at 145. If he even gets there, he looks way bigger than a featherweight. But he's made it in the past, so I got no reason to think that he won't. Cardio could potentially be an issue down the line with the pace that Stack pushes, just with this guy carrying so much muscle. And I get why Stack's favored here. It makes sense. He closed as big as a minus 1,400 favorite in his last fight against a 4-2 Jackson Fieldho. And guys, he didn't look anywhere close to that. You look at the guys that he's fought before that, and he really hasn't fought anyone that good, outside of Kai Kamaka, who handed him his first loss. He had a close fight with Fieldho last time. Has an even tougher opponent in Caio Gregorio now, in my opinion. And minus 260 is just too steep for me here. If I had to play a side here, I would probably go with Caio Gregorio at plus 200. I haven't made any plays on this fight at the moment. I'm going to wait and see what the line does. If it's really crazy or if I start to feel more strongly about it closer to the fight, maybe I'll get a play down. But yeah, man, I don't think I can feel comfortable laying minus 260 on Michael Stack in the spot. We just saw him face a lot of resistance from an opponent that I don't really rate super highly in his last fight, and I think he's going to be up against it with another tough opponent here. So I think at the very least, Gregorio makes this fight look closer than the current line. But, Michael Stack is very good, pushes a very high pace. So it's a tough one to call. But I think that at the current number, there's more value on Gregorio at plus 200 than Stack at minus 260. That's just my opinion. So I guess I'll tentatively go with Caio Gregorio on this spot. All right, moving on to the first women's strawweight bout on this card, and that's going to be between Ashley Nichols and Hilarie Rose. So Nichols will have a bit of a size advantage in this matchup. She is also 6 years older at 35. And she's actually at Chippewa First Nations. There was a CBC feature on her 3 years ago that I saw on YouTube. She's competed in kickboxing and Thai boxing in the past. Most recently fought in a kickboxing match in Glory. That was back in 2018. Hasn't fought in MMA since 2018 either. She has a 3-3 MMA record, lost her debut fight to Randa Marcos back in 2013, then went 3-0 on TKO with 2 round 1 knockouts, went to Invicta and went 0-2, dropping her most recent fight to Mallory Martin. She's a great striker, as you might expect with that kind of a base. That is where she's going to want this fight to take place. She has good combination punches, good placement as well, rips to the body. Expecting her to have an advantage in the reach here. Really good hand speed, pumps out the jab, kicks her really hard as well, really digs into the legs. Rocked and dropped Mallory Martin with a right cross early in their fight. And she's also strong in the clinch. She's pretty tall for this division. Up against the cage, the takedown defense is pretty solid. She's comfortable there, digs the underhooks, pushes on the head. In the center of the cage, she struggles a little bit more, but still has shown some solid defensive wrestling. But those better wrestlers are able to get her to the mat. Her Muay Thai base has her a little bit upright, a little bit flat-footed at times, and I feel like that's kind of what makes it difficult to stay on the feet against a good wrestler and grappler, especially in the center of the cage. I don't really rate her jiu-jitsu super high. I think that if her shoulders hit the mat, she's usually going to be in a bit of trouble. Usually when she runs into this type of trouble, it is because of the grappling. She lost to Mallory Martin via ground and pound, lost to Randa Marcos via armbar, and then her other loss, Sharon Jacobson, that was a very wrestling-heavy decision that she lost there. She was taken down in all 3 rounds in that one. And she's coming back to the cage at 35 after a layoff here, so that doesn't make you feel super confident coming into this one. But, running the tape, she does have really good hands, and I actually was very impressed. I think that Ashley Nichols is a lot better than I was actually expecting when I went to the tape. Hilarie Rose is a staple of women's MMA in the Northeast. She's a regular on CES, a regular on CFFC. She has an 80% finish rate, 4 finishes and 3 wins, 2 submissions, 2 knockouts, and at 4-1, she came on to Dana White's Contender Series, was defeated by Cheyenne Vlismas there, picked herself back up with a win on CFFC, then fought for the CFFC title in her next bout and was finished by Elise Reed, who is now in the UFC as well. But she followed that up with a kickboxing victory, had 2 fights canceled after that. One of them was supposed to be against Catherine Paparaki on LFA. The other one was supposed to be against Emily Whitmire on Invicta. And Rose is definitely, among the upper echelon of regional strawweights at the moment, I would say. I am a little bit worried about the stand-up for her. I think that Nichols is going to be able to land down the middle. Normally, Rose is able to get inside and land combinations. She normally struggles to do that against the better strikers, and I think she's coming up against one here. Elise Reed gave her some problems on the feet. Cheyenne Vlismas gave her some problems on the feet. Those are 2 UFC fighters, so that's to be taken with a grain of salt to a certain extent. But Ashley Nichols is a really good striker. She fought UFC fighter Mallory Martin last time out and was the better striker, knocked her down in the first round. Rose is going to need to be very mindful of the distance on the feet. I think that she'll be, at the very least, competitive in the striking. I mean, Hilarie Rose is very good. Just took and won a kickboxing match also, so I believe she's making improvements. But if this is going to be standing for 3 rounds, I just don't like her chances. I think a Rose win needs to have a lot of variety, needs to work in some wrestling, work in some grappling, really push the pace. She is a good grappler. She has a solid jiu-jitsu game, will be the better fighter on the ground, I believe. I think she'll be the better wrestler as well. I can see her shooting a lot of takedowns, getting stuffed sometimes, but being able to land them in crucial moments. She's also very quick on the feet, and I think that's going to be important against an older opponent returning from a layoff. So I'm going to go with Hilarie Rose here, but just ever so slightly. She opened up as a bigger favorite, and it's actually come down to a pick'em. So that's about where I thought this one should be prior to the odds coming out. Hilarie Rose did open as a slightly heavier favorite, so I was kind of surprised to see that, but the line is now down about where I expected it to be. I think that on the feet, Hilarie Rose is going to need to be careful. I think that Nichols is going to be able to have some success here with the fast hands straight down the pipe, but Rose has been way more active. She's been improving. She's younger. I believe she'll be faster and will be a bit more aggressive. So I just can't ignore the intangibles from the younger fighter, the more active fighter. So I'm going to go with Hilarie Rose here, but I definitely think it's going to be close. Definitely think it's justifiable to have this one as a pick'em. So that's my read on this fight. That's going to bring us up to the co-main event. We have a really good bout between Adam Fuggitt and Solomon Renfro at welterweight. Fuggitt is an X1 welterweight champion, hasn't been in the cage since 2019 now, did compete against Nick Maximov in Submission Underground in 2020, but he had 2 canceled bouts last year, so I believe he's been training. He's got a very solid 8-2 record, lost to Kylan Hill, who went on to have a 4-0 LFA stint and ended up on Contender Series. The other loss was Austin Vanderford, who is still undefeated and fighting for the Bellator title versus Mousasi on the same day as this fight. So not too bad losses to have on your resume there. Fuggitt is 33 years old. He's currently coming in on a 3-fight win streak, and he's a good finisher. This guy's got an 86% finish rate, 3 knockouts, 3 submissions. Striking-wise, he's got that high guard, good kicks to the body and legs. Sometimes will enter with combinations to get in on a shot. Can be vulnerable defensively in those moments to counter straight down the pipe. Seems to be standing in a more open stance than I'd really like at times, but he's got a decent jab. I really like his kicking game. When he uses some range control and gets his kick going, I really liked what I saw, and I really like the way he rips to the body with his back leg. I also really like the use of his elbows in close. He's got a good Muay Thai kind of style on the feet. Grappling wise, he is strong physically. He uses that power to get takedowns. He's strong in the clinch, good knees, tries for trips, good jiu-jitsu game. He's a submission threat. The top game is good once he can establish control on the ground. That seems to be the more difficult part of those sequences. Once he is there, he transitions well, he scrambles well, and does damage from the top. The defensive wrestling looks quite solid as well. He's going to be taller than Renfro by a fair bit. Could have some size here. Solomon Renfro has fought pretty much his entire career on CFFC. Had only 1 loss during his tenure there, and that was against Mike Mallet. Showed up on Dana White's Contender Series after 2 consecutive round 1 finishes in CFFC and loses a split decision to Johnny Parsons. And you could make the argument that he won there. Kind of kicked Parsons' ass in the first round, to be honest, and then 2 and 3 were close rounds. Definitely could have been 29-28 Renfro. It was 29-28 Parsons. Can't really argue too much. It was a close fight. But, either way you look at it, Renfro is back on the proven grounds here. He's got some nice power in his hands. Nice twos to the body. And if he connects the right way on the chin, you'll be staring up at the lights. Would like to see a little more extended combinations from him. He's got good 1-2s, and he mixes it up with the placement as well. It goes body head. But a lot of just 1-2s and singular strikes. I'd like to see some more 3s and 4s out of this guy. Grappling wise, he has that powerful double leg. Just a really powerful guy, a bit small height wise for 170, but he's built like a tank. He's very athletic. Output does drop a little bit as the fight wears on. I don't think it's that he's not in shape. He just carries a ton of muscle on his frame. And obviously it's hard to be as explosive as you are at the start of the fight when you're 12 minutes deep, right? So I am going to go with Renfro here. I like him to get this win. He's younger, he's more active, his strength of schedule has gotten more rigorous as time goes on. He just dusted 2 tough opponents on CFFC back-to-back and then won a hard 3 rounds with Johnny Parsons. I think that Solomon Renfro gets this one done here, so that's going to be my pick. Alright, that's going to bring us up to the main event of the evening. We have Jaqueline Amorim versus Loveth Young for the vacant strawweight championship. This should be a great fight. And actually, guys, I've already talked about this one. Back in LFA 118, this was supposed to be the main event. I had a bet on Loveth Young at plus 300 at the opener, which is an absolutely insane line that I'm never going to get back. But, it is what it is. I'm still a little bit salty about that. I do like Loveth Young once again. And, just to avoid repeating myself too much, guys, I'm just going to actually paste in the same breakdown that I did for this fight originally because my thoughts really have not changed on the matter. Obviously the line is a little bit different now. It's actually at a dead pick'em right now. I do like Loveth Young, but who better to tell you why than me from a couple months ago in November? So I'm going to put that up here, guys. Thanks for watching the video. I really appreciate it. Take it easy. I'll catch you on the next one, and you can enjoy this breakdown that I did back in November. Saves you having to go click on the other video, and it'll give you my thoughts because, like I said, they really haven't changed between then and now. So here you go. I'll catch you on the next one. So we've arrived at the main event for the vacant LFA strawweight title, and we have a great match between Jaqueline Amorim and Loveth Young. So Amorim is a jiu-jitsu player extraordinaire. She was the New York Spring International Open champion for the IBJJF event there in 2017, was the IBJJF Atlanta International Open champ in 2017 as well, and she's placed at many other events, as is the case with a lot of these jiu-jitsu specialists. She was a world champion in gi and no gi at purple and brown belt levels, and she uses that grappling to win her fights, as you might expect. I mean, she hasn't had a fight go over 2 minutes yet. 4-0, 3-round submissions, 1 KO, and she has fought 2 fighters making their debut and 1 with a losing record. Had her last fight with Megan Owen where she flatlined her in 10 seconds. And, that fight was really over before it started. I just think it probably would have lasted a little longer. I still think Amorim would have won, but she just really hasn't had a tough test yet, or even really had to face any adversity on the MMA side so far. So her fights, to be honest, have been kind of, they're not super high level. Her opponents look like they don't want to be there kind of immediately, and Amorim is able to pass guard like a knife through butter and get a submission. I think that's not going to be really the case here. I think she's going to face a lot more resistance from Loveth Young. Amorim will have a nice reach advantage over Young here. Amorim has a 67.5-inch reach, which is pretty long for 115 pounds. That's definitely going to help her with the grappling, and I'm just not sure about her stand-up game. The 10-second KO didn't quite convince me. It was impressive, but didn't quite do the trick here. Loveth Young, the Nigerian Terminator, made her pro debut against Cynthia Arcio, who we've seen in LFA. Arcio was 4-0 at the time. The fight ended as a draw on a split technical decision because of an accidental eye poke, and the rematch saw Loveth Young get a round 1 rear naked choke. That's a tough debut fight, or tough debut fights, you could say, but it was the same fighter both times. That's tough. She was 4-0. We've seen her in LFA. Arcio is a legit martial artist, and Young jumped into deeper water in her first fight than Amorim has yet in her whole career, and the next fight that Young had, she lost a decision to Vanessa Demopoulos, and no shame there, one of the better LFA strawweights we've had in the past few years, and is now a UFC fighter, so I don't feel like that's really a bad loss in your second ever fight. So next fight, Young gets a bit of a step down in competition against Rena Norville and KOs her in the first round. Most recently, we saw her fight an Invicta veteran in Kelly D'Angelo in January, where she was able to win on punches in the second round. And Loveth Young has a 100% finish rate to match Amorim's 100% finish rate, but I feel like she's doing it against better competition. Loveth Young hits super hard. She's very physical, very athletic. Her physique is pretty wild, man. Very muscular, a lot of fast twitch muscle fiber. And if this fight stays standing, it should be Young all day. I feel like she's the better striker and by far the harder hitter. She will have to close the distance on the longer Amorim, but I think she'll be able to do that. Young is also pretty fast. She likes to touch you up with that jab, really firm right hook. So I'm going with Young here. I think Young is going to show Amorim her first bit of adversity, and I think Amorim is going to be a little discouraged when she feels that power, and I think Loveth Young is going to live up to her nickname, the Nigerian Terminator, and find a finish here. So I bet Young as soon as this line dropped at plus 300, which is just the most absolutely insane line that I've seen in a while, man. Plus 300 on Loveth Young. That's crazy. She's now moved from, she was minus 200 all the way down from plus 300 to minus 200 at one point, but on average now she's come back to about minus 146. So there has been, she got steamed as soon as that opener came out, got up to minus 200. Then people started taking Amorim a little bit, but I think even at minus 160, even at minus 135, which is the best price you can get Loveth Young for, she's still the side to me. I'm super happy with my plus 300 ticket. That's probably one of the best bets I've made all year. So super pleased with that. And yeah, I think Loveth Young is going to win this one. She hits really hard. She's very athletic, and I feel like she's faced much tougher competition and just has a better overall MMA game here. But Jaqueline Amorim definitely has looked very impressive and really hasn't left much to complain with 4 first-round finishes in her 4 fights. So it should be a great fight to determine the new strawweight champion in LFA, and I'm really looking forward to it. So that's going to do it for my picks, guys. Hopefully you guys have a good weekend. Best of luck with anything you choose to bet on. And as always, take care. I will catch you on the next video.